2, 1.
This is the Supermach SM, dang it, hold on, it's Jamie. This is the Supermach Meta SM01. And it claims to be the bike that can outperform and outclass the big bad Sur-Ron. It also claims it can do it for even cheaper. So, we're gonna find out. So the interesting thing about the e-bike market, it is both scary and confusing and a little strange. And there are so many options. There's like 50 manufacturers in the market making all similar questionable bikes. And chances are your kid in the past hour has changed his mind 3 times on what bike he wants, depending on what hooligan he's watching currently on YouTube at that very second. But you're in luck. I'm not one of those hooligans. I'm an adult. This is Supermach, and it comes in 2 different models of electric dirt bikes. But before I throw in a bunch of strange numbers with kilowatts and amp hours and all that stuff, I'm gonna actually explain how electric dirt bikes are categorized. And they're separated into 3 main categories. The top tier bikes are in the 10K plus range, and these are rivaling or even sometimes beating the conventional gas-powered dirt bike. This would be companies like Stark Varg, Zero, KTM, Honda and Yamaha are both getting in this game. When you're riding these bikes, you need full gear. You need all the gear. I'm talking MX boots, knee pads, jerseys, chest protector, elbow pads, Hans device. You need all that stuff to ride these bikes if you're going to be anywhere close to being safe. This is by far the most competitive. These are bikes in the ballpark of the 5K range, and there's over 30 companies in this category competing for your business. This is also not a motorcycle that you buy for your kids to ride in the neighborhood. This is not their commuter bike. This is not a replacement for a bicycle. Some of these bikes can do over 60 miles an hour. So when you're riding a level 2 category e-bike, you need all the gear and you need a place like this. You need to treat it like a dirt bike. Now level 1, they have a wattage limit, they have pedals on it, and they can only go up to I think 19 or 20 miles an hour. But those are the bikes that you can actually get your kids to replace for a bicycle. They're generally in the $1,000 to $2,500 range. Generally, they can't get more expensive. I like to separate those 2 things completely. When my kids are in the neighborhood, they're riding bicycles. When my kids are out on the farm, they're just riding full-blown dirt bikes or an electric bike if we have one. Now, like I said before, this is the Supermach, and this is their bigger of the 2. They got 2 different ones. The big one, we'll go talk about the smaller one later, although kind of a spoiler alert, they did something completely different than what I thought they were going to do with these 2 motorcycles. When we get to that one, I'll explain it for you, but it kind of blew my mind away. So this bike, the SM01, has an MSRP of $49.99, just under the $5,000 mark. And after taking all the specs that they give you on the spec sheet, newton meters and kilowatt hours and all that stuff, I kind of deciphered it all. The best way to clarify of the specs on this bike are as such. It makes about 18 horsepower at peak, but 8 horsepower continuous. It tops out at just over 60 miles per hour and can hit 30 miles per hour from a stop in roughly 2 seconds, which is incredibly fast, which for a motorcycle like this is pretty hard to do because the front, it's gonna wanna just loop you. And that's one of the tough things about these electric bikes. That's kind of what makes them so dangerous, where on a gas-powered clutch dirt bike, you need some skill to do a really good launch, to get all the power out that you can. On a bike like this, you just twist the throttle. If you do this at a stop, you loop the bike, possibly got hurt. Well, I know what you're thinking, like, oh, you're being too negative about these bikes. You need to be cautious about these bikes. And when you learn how to ride them, you need to start on the slow mode and just get used to it. Just get used to what it does, get used to what it feels like. But once you can use this bike and harness the power of it, they are a blast. They're tons of fun, and I definitely recommend you guys getting out and riding them. And it hits 30 miles an hour from stop in roughly 2 seconds, which is a number that actually more matters on trails, since instant electric torque off the line is what makes these bikes feel so fast. The company advertises 354 pounds of torque. That's kind of a weird way to measure it, because obviously it does not have as much torque as your Chevy Silverado. A slightly better way to showcase that, because that's kind of confusing, is it's somewhere around the high 30s in horsepower on the back wheel. So at a stop from 0 to 30, that's the equivalent like torque as you're gonna get from like a motocross 450 bike, which is very impressive. Now, unlike some of the other companies, Supermach has been making smaller dirt bikes for a number of years. They didn't just decide to be like, all right, this is an opportunity, let's get into e-bikes. They've been making dirt bikes. So they do have a leg up than these other companies and we've driven some other companies' e-bikes. A lot of them spec out well. Oh, they got the biggest top speed, they got the most power, they got the biggest battery. But then when you actually put it all together and you ride it, you're like, oh, they've never ridden a dirt bike in their life. Superbike's different, and this thing feels a whole lot better than those other bikes. It feels much more like a regular conventional dirt bike. Now the real headline on this bike is the battery, a 3.7 kilowatt hour semi-solid state pack, which is the biggest in the $5,000 class, and about 60% more energy than the Sur. Good for around 70 miles of mixed riding, that's a lot of miles. I mean, 70 miles that's you riding trails for close to 5 hours, depending on what you're doing. In real life, it's a middleweight. It's 187 pounds with the battery, so it's heavier and more planted than some of the lighter ones, but it's also way lighter than a 250 gas engine. It's a full size with a 35-inch seat height and 12 inches of ground clearance. And with a lot of hardware and parts, that's much better than what you would think you would get for $5,000. Suspension's the biggest upgrade you do on any motorcycle, and this suspension is probably one of the best I've ever seen, where it's fully adjustable right here, and you could tell they spent some money on it. Now, I've never heard of that brand. They probably make their own stuff. It definitely feels better than the other ones I've ridden. Now, the hardware is much better than the price would suggest. It's got 9.4 inches of front suspension travel with adjustable compression and rebound, a 4-piston front brake caliper on 9.4-inch discs, 4 levels of adjustable regen braking, and IP65 waterproofing on the motor, battery, and controller, meaning it can survive being dunked in 3 feet of water, which I know you're thinking, oh, why would you ever do that? Trust me, if you ride dirt bikes, that's gonna happen. Now, let's talk about, I overshot my thing. Now, let's talk about this bike. And you notice, I snuck in there quiet like a ninja. So, if you're thinking about doing bank robberies, think about it, ninja stuff. No, don't be doing bank robberies. This one is the SM62. And this one comes in, it's actually it's not a prototype, but this is their new one. I think they're doing pre-orders right now. And this comes in at $3,800, $1,200 cheaper than that one, and it might surprise you. Also, there's kind of a cool feature that both of these have that I'll show you in a second. But it's got 3 different modes. You come over here to the mode button, and you got Sport, Eco. You got Cozy, Sport, Eco, and then you got Cozy. Sport's obviously the fastest one. Cozy is obviously the softest one, the most comfortable with a blanket, and then Eco is probably the most economy friendly. So if you're like, oh, I'm low on battery, I gotta get back, you're gonna put it on Eco mode. I would suggest starting to ride on these bikes on the lowest mode, because you're gonna get the greatest range, and you get to get comfortable with the way the bike feels. This one makes around 21.5 horsepower at peak and 6.7 at continuous. And it's kind of like the drag racer of them too, because from 0 to 31, it can do it in 1.6 seconds. Now that's if you can keep it on the ground, because this thing just wants to loop you. Now it's not as fast as its big brother. This one only tops out at 53 miles an hour. And the advertised Newton meter converts to around 391, which also doesn't really make any sense. It ends up somewhere around like 35 foot-pounds of torque. But that's a lot of torque for a light bike like that. The battery is the same size as the Meta, with a 74 volt 50 amp battery, but uses 21,700 name brand Samsung cells instead of the semi-solid state pack that the other one has. And if you know anything about Samsung cells, Samsung makes a pretty good product. They make good refrigerators, they make good battery cells for your e-bikes. The overall range is 68 miles, but note that's in Eco mode at a steady 28 miles per hour, that's generally faster than most people are going to be, doing on the trails, depending on what kind of trail riding you're doing. And it's got the same IP67 waterproofing as the other bike. Physically, this bike is more flickable and significantly lighter. This bike weighs 154 pounds, which is, that's lighter than your BMX bike weighs with your girlfriend on the back. This bike would compare best and possibly beat it in most categories with like a YZ85 or a CRF 150R. Now, one of the cool things about both of these bikes, and I don't know why all electric bike companies don't do this, because it's very easy. It's just a reverse polarity thing. It's just a computer code. If you come over here, press this button right here, the R button, Now you're reversing. There's so many times when you're riding that a reverse would be very helpful. You're on a tight trail. Just gotta back up out of here, reverse it, go get out, do your thing. Also, you can tell the bikes that are going for children safe, and then actually they want you to race them and do race stuff. And the biggest difference that I've always seen was the ability to be on the brake and be on the gas at the same time. No motorcycle ever would stop you from being on the brake and on the gas, because that's part of riding motorcycles. But every bike made for children will stop you from that, because all they want you to do is just either going or you're stopping. You're not doing both at the same time. A real motorcycle, you're doing both at the same time. And this bike has full function. You don't got to unplug anything. Lets you do burnouts, be on the brake and on the throttle at the same time, which is how most of riding is done. It gets to the point where it's dangerous if you're not able to be on the brake and on the throttle at the same time. So huge, awesome feature. Really kind of shows what they're trying to build with this machine. Is that a light? I'll check it out. A horn. That's pretty loud. I don't recommend buying e-bikes just off of specs, because there's different quality, there's higher and lower quality, and then there's the whole feel of it. And like I said before, I've ridden bikes that they spec'd out better than everything else, but I hated riding them. They didn't feel good. The throttle response was goofy. The power delivery was bad. The seating position, the ergonomics of it, for whatever reason. And I can genuinely tell you that these feel significantly more dialed in. Honestly, if Honda or Kawasaki or a big name brand was making a bike like this, I imagine it would feel very similar to this. This feels like what a dirt bike does, not even should feel. It feels like dirt bikes do feel. All right, so there's a key on the big one. There's a key to get to the seat. It goes on the side. You pop that open, a couple grommets. There's your battery. It's actually really easy access to pull the battery. Flip that, unplug that, little a screw right there, wing nut, pull it out. Also, it's got a storage compartment to keep your Buc-ee's sandwiches. You could go, if you could legally ride this on the road, which you can't, but if you can go off-road to get to a Buc-ee's, I don't know, seven sandwiches inside there. The other cool thing about this bike is the way you start it. Where that one has a key, this one has this very cool looking, I think it's a passive proximity key, where you reach over here, turn it on, turn it off. Reach over here, turn it back on. An Asian woman says Bluetooth mode. The only way to really test these bikes out is not for me to tell you about the stats and all the specs of it, because that's boring. The way to really test these bikes out is let's go ride them. And to help me out, I brought my son Steele. And before we go riding, it's got me thinking of one of my favorite Bible verses, Colossians 3:12. So as those who have been chosen of God, holy and beloved, put on a heart of compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Let's go ride some dirt bikes. Oh. Let's do it again. So this is something that I never got to do with my dad. Although recently we have started riding motorcycles together. But this has quickly become one of my favorite things to do with my sons. 2 electric dirt bikes, a few acres of woods, and all afternoon, and you just have the best time. You good?
Right onto a thorn bush.
Don't grab the throttle. But here's the thing that no one tells you about when it comes to electric dirt bikes. Listen. Can you hear it? That's it. That's the whole soundtrack. Which means the entire time we're riding, we can actually talk to each other. I can say stuff to him, he can say stuff to me. We don't have to hand signal each other. We're not pulling over. Huge air. He's telling me about what's going on. We're talking about the cool things we see. Try to do this on a 2-stroke. It's almost impossible. Even a 4-stroke. It's just too loud. Don't go the way I went. Don't go the way I went. Now here's the real test. My son didn't start on electric dirt bikes. He's been riding gas bikes for a long time, and actually been riding since he was, for about 7 years. So when he swung his leg over this thing, I watched his face, and it was about 100 yards in. He was grinning from ear to ear. It has no clutch to feather, no gears to hunt down, no, it's easier starting on hills. All the stuff he loves about riding, minus the fight. Nice. He told me it just felt easy. And easy means he's riding a little bit better, looking further ahead and having more fun. And there's no hot pipe or anything for you to get burned on. There's plenty of other ways you can get hurt, but there's not a hot pipe. Now as a dad, that one matter is more than I'd like to admit. These are not toys, these are serious off-road dirt bikes. They got real suspension, they got real speed, they got real power. And that's exactly why we're geared up head to toe. Helmets, boots, works, pads, shoulder pads, knee pads, all the stuff. I make my kids wear all the gear anytime they're jumping on one of these things. Because the chances of you getting hurt when you're not wearing the gear are pretty high. It's the same as if we ride any other bike, because these things are quick. The electric torque is instant. There's no waiting for the revs, it's just all right there. There's no power band to find. It's always right there. You just twist and it goes. It's honestly one of the most fun feelings in all of motorcycling. But here's the part that sold me as a guy who owns these. When we're done, there's no gas, there's no oil changes, there's no pre-mix, there's no filter changes. You just plug it in like it's a phone or a blender, and you just let it charge. It costs pennies to run, and it's full again by morning. I've owned hundreds of motorcycles. I've owned the loud ones, I've owned the fast ones, I've owned the expensive ones. But a quiet bike lets me hear my son having a good time, talking in the woods. That might be one of the most fun I could possibly have. So if you want to try out these Supermoc bikes, go to the website supermoc.com or click on the link in the description or click on the QR code right here.